This video is not intended for children. Viewer discretion is advised.
If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Seven Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me tonight is the one, the only, the doctor, the author, the rambling man, Adega Outlaw. I feel like doing like a boxer shuffle as I'm saying that.
The goofball.
He bobs, he weaves, you know, the master of destruction, the lord of chaos, the big boomer. Oh, man.
Never done one of those, but well, that's okay. Let's go.
Oh shit. Good evening, Jedi Bill 797, Chris Persia, Lori Roberts, the Destructor is here, ladies and gentlemen. Purple Valkyrie Samantha Joe, the Valkyries are here. Captain Shrek, my wrench. How are you doing, brother? Robert Pearson, good evening. What's his face make whatnot? Almost messed that up. Almost. Mark the infinitely tired. Chris Knight. How are you guys doing? Jedi Bill 797, and of course the lovely Nina Green is out there in chat. Good evening, Nina. Positive Candor is here. God, I love watching his show before mine in the morning. I have been getting up early to catch his show. Good evening, Positive Candor. How is everybody out there doing tonight? I hope you guys are doing well. DJ Odyssey is in the chat. Hello, DJ. How are you doing, brother? Lady Mist, the guardian of the void, is here. Good evening, Lady Mist. Keely Chow, roll tide. Keely, roll tide. Keep them rolling, brother. And man, dude, we've got a show for you guys tonight. We are going to be talking about some independence, some Texas independence.
The hottest blood in the country existed at one time. Oh, and I have to apologize. Robert Pearson, no talk of alcohol tonight. Sorry.
No talk of alcohol. No, we are not doing Thirsty Thursdays today.
Freedom and fight against despotism.
Yes, and lots of drinking. Donald Myers, how are you doing? Samantha Joe right there for Texas. Yes, ma'am, for Texas. Hell yes. Absolutely. For Texas. And these guys that we're going to talk about two huge battles tonight. We are going to talk about the battle, of course, for the Alamo and the aftermath of that, the battle for San Jacinto. And I know Adega has been chomping at the bit. You can tell by his avatar. You can tell. Who do you got as your avatar, brother?
Jim Bowie. And I got my Bowie knife right next to me. I really do. I showed it
right.
to Loki beforehand. It's a nice 10-incher.
He did. It is a massive blade. And of course, my avatar is the awesome Sam Elliott, who played Sam Houston, who fought at the Battle of San Jacinto. And who, incidentally enough, they named Houston after.
Absolutely.
So why don't you kick us off, man? Kick us off on what was going on.
All right, let's get into some history. You guys will not be quizzed on this, so don't think of it as school. Just think of it as a pride for a nation or nation building of people who came before us who actually had real fire in their veins and were able to stand up against odds that were totally against them, but it was the right thing to do. Kind of like what we're doing now, only different circumstances. But to begin with, once upon a time, Texas and the entire West Coast and Florida were all part of Spain. And we had nice little treaties with Spain and France. We bought the Louisiana Purchase. And along the border of the Louisiana Purchase was a place that some people called Texas. Some people called it Mexico. The border was kind of fuzzy for a while, but the Mexicans decided to kick out the Spaniards. And in the process, those borders got a little blurred. The United States sent several different delegations saying, hey, you know what? We're going to buy Texas. And the president, El Presidente at the time, kind of a common sense guy, believe it or not, for Mexico. They've had their history of not so good people. But this guy wasn't too bad, but he wouldn't sell it. And instead what they did is they got these guys called impresarios, and they went to the Texas area and started selling land. And part of the money would go back to Mexico, and the other part would go with these impresarios. And they'd sell large lots of land to American citizens that wanted to start. So these guys were selling all this land. All these Americans were coming in. Families, you had to be a family. You had to be a hard worker. You had to be a Christian. And things were going okay until a lot of Americans started showing up. And there was what was called the Green Flag Revolution, where a group of them decided, you know what, we're kind of wanting to have a constitution more close to the United States than what Mexico has. And that got beat down. Well, sometime later, that president killed himself. And his last words were, what are we going to do about Texas? Believe it or not, he was that worried that he killed himself over Texas. Well, they had a bunch of despots and different people that came in. And one guy who said their problem was whether they were going to be a republic, whether they were going to go with the centrists, or whether, they had no clue what they were going to do. Well, y'all guys, you know of a man named, Santiago. Is that his name? Why am I going blank? Santiago.
It was.
I don't remember his first name.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
While he's looking that up, Santiago promised to be more of a Republican. Go ahead.
You're talking about Santa Anna, right?
Santa Anna.
General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna.
Right. And he said, yeah, I want the government to be decentralized. And when he got in, he said, no, I'm going to be a centrist. And over time, he decided, you know what? I am the Napoleon of the West. And that's actually what he called himself. Brutal man. Anyone who is out of the ordinary, from what he considered ordinary, anything that had resembled a spark of freedom, he brought it down. And I was telling Loki about this. There was one instance where there was it wasn't really of an uprising, but the people weren't doing what he wanted. So he had his men go in there, killed most of the men, and said, you got 2 days, have at it. And they just raped and pillaged for 2 days to stop these people down. One and indivisible, absolutely. Well, there were a lot of people, one guy in particular, he's not a very nice guy, but he actually, in the end, he turned out to be a pretty good guy. You've heard of him, William Travis. He had pretty much was a failure at the age of 20. He had a wife, a kid, and ran off to Texas where he could hide his name and worked as a lawyer. And he started small insurrections and fighting with the local government where he wanted slavery to exist in Texas, where most people didn't, because they were Catholic. But he was put down, left alive, and so we have this gentleman there. Then, over time, the sight of seeing Santa Anna and what he was doing to the country caused a lot of nervousness, not only to the Texans, but also to Santa Anna. He didn't like what was going on there. And the Texans, who were comprised of, there's two groups. There was the Texians, which were the Americans, and there were the Tejans, which were the Mexicans, who wanted to be free of the despot. So this was not one side against the other. These were Mexicans, they were Americans, there were several other groups that were there that all decided, you know what, we don't like this, And over time, we'll go ahead and start getting close to the battle because we've got a lot to cover. Santa Anna decided, I am going to bring 2,000 men up into Texas. They went to a place, they wanted to take the cannons from this place that was already in place there from Gonzales I don't know what the name of it is, if it's still the same name in Texas now, but they went there and the people knew they were coming and they put up a big flag for Santa Anna to greet him and said, come and take it, with a cannon on there. And those people fought, weren't successful. And then there was the people at the Alamo, 150. And they decided, you know what? This is where we draw the line. We can't let them go any further. At the same time, there was another gentleman. You guys will know this name. Davy Crockett, who was a senator and got beat. His constituents voted him out and it pissed him off. This was in 1834. And the famous line, you guys all know this. You guys can go to hell. I'm going to
Texas. That's right. And you go to the Alamo, you can get a hat with that on it. You can get a hat with that right there in the Alamo gift shop. You can go to hell. I'm going to Texas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was everything to the media. People loved this guy. Why his constituents didn't let him stay in, who knows? But he went down there. There was another guy, like I said, Jim Bowie, who was a very respected man at the time. He was, no, actually, he wasn't that respected. I'm looking at another one. He was brave to the end, I'll give you that much. And he married the vice governor's daughter, so he had a little respect there, but he used to cheat land in Arkansas. And when they caught him, he ran to the territory of Texas. But what he became known of before Alamo, and people really respected him, there was an Indian war party coming into Texas. They were going to steal, rape, pillage. And 13 of his men held off. It wasn't 13, it was 10 men. Held off the Indian raiding party for 13 hours. Didn't lose a single man. Killed, who knows, they didn't number how many Indians until they left. So he was heralded as a hero, and he ended up at the Alamo at the same time. Well, Santa Anna, being the monster that he was, the people at the Alamo figured, well, we got until spring before these guys come. We have time. We're going to gather a force, and we're going to build up our defenses and protect our country, because we know Santa Anna is coming to put down this rebellion of freedom-thinking people. It didn't work that way. Santa Anna took pride in how much suffering his men had, and he made them suffer. They marched I think it was 900 miles in November and lost 500 men in the march because he was so brutal to them and making them march through that desert. So when they got there, they were already down 500 men. But we end up at the Alamo, and they start laying siege there. And the defenders weren't stupid. There were some women and some, innocent people that were there, but the defenders weren't stupid. They kept sending out these little feelers out into the surrounding territories, into the local government, which actually became the independent government of the territory of Texas, wanting extra help. And eventually people started coming. They ended up with 250 defenders at the time when everything started to hit the fan. Now, I wanted to get in a little bit of the weapons. You guys probably don't hear about the weapons, but both sides had cannons. And the walls around the mission and the Alamo itself, it was a pretty big place, were about 4 feet thick. Yep. There's a lot of Texans of you, so we had to get into this real story here. So 10 days where these gentlemen were doing a phenomenal job of, well, you can imagine, take 250 men and you're surrounded by almost 3,000 men on the north, on the west, and on the south, having guns that you had to reload with each shot They didn't have any repeaters at the time. They had muskets. They had other ones that were cap loaded. If you guys don't know, basically a musket, you put a little powder and you load it and you fire, and they're not accurate past 70. The cap ones were accurate to about 200 yards, ones who really knew them. But they also had things called blunderbusses. Plus the Mexicans had those. They were basically, think of a shotgun in a pistol form. And there were double-barreled shotguns at the time. So these guys, 250, with this massive wall that they're trying to fight off these thousands of men, did a great job for 10 days with these cannons rattling all the time. They couldn't sleep. During the night, they had to repair the walls. It wasn't just a matter of blasting a hole in the wall. These shells that were hitting the wall were just big balls. And breaking it down was not easy. So each night, after having their whole day rattled, they spent filling in the wall. These guys didn't sleep until one night when it was quiet and the men were all sleeping. This is after the 10th day. This is May 6th, 1836. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning when Santa Anna decided, let's go get them. The men were, the Spanish were on, again, the north, the west, and the south, within 100 yards. When one of the men of the Spanish was really, really stupid, or the Mexicans, he was really stupid, he yelled out in a battle cry, which alerted other men around him who thought that's what they needed to do, and they all started yelling, which alerted the defenders inside the Alamo. And they fought, and they fought, and it was just a matter of hours before these 250 men were overrun and gave their lives for Texas, and in a real way gave their lives for a constitutional republic. The great men of Jim Bowie, who at the time had tuberculosis. The Mexicans will tell you he was asleep in his bed, hiding under a blanket. The guy could barely move, and yet they had to stab him several times to kill him. Davy Crockett was one of the last men standing. They say that he was captured. Others say that he died fighting. We'll never know the truth, but knowing the character of that man, I doubt he gave them an inch even to his last breath. William Travis was one of the first ones also to die. He became their leading lieutenant at the age of 26. But in doing so, there were some people that were captured. They say 2 escaped. A freed, well, he wasn't freed slave. It was Travis's slave. He got away. And there was another gentleman who, according to the journals and things, he hid very well, and they didn't catch him. There was a bunch of women that were there, and they just let the women go. But the rest of them, whoever survived, Santa Anna makes sure they died. They had a red flag before the battle started that they put out in the mission next to the one that they were at. And the red flag meant surrender or we're going to kill you all. And they did. And the cry, as you guys know, went throughout Texas, remember the Alamo. He's coming for you regardless. You either stand and fight or you die like a coward. And Texans are not cowards. Go ahead, Loki.
No, they are not. After that happened, from March to May, Mexican forces controlled the Alamo again. And for Texans, like Adega said, the Battle of the Alamo became a symbol of heroic resistance and a rallying cry in the struggle for their independence. On April 21st, 1836, Sam Houston and some 800 Texans, 800. Their forces went from 276 before the Battle of the Alamo to over 800. Met Santa Anna's army on what is now San Jacinto in Texas. There's a monument there for it, where the battle happened. And they fought 1,500 men versus 800. And every single American was screaming, "Remember the Alamo," as they charged into battle. And they won. They defeated Santa Anna's force. The victory ensured the success of Texas independence. And in mid-May, Santa Anna, who had been taken prisoner, who no one knew who he was hiding. He had disguised himself as just a common Mexican. Was identified, and he was forced to sign the Treaty of Velasco, in which Texas was recognized an independent country in exchange for his freedom. The treaty was later dissolved as tensions built up along the Texas-Mexican border. Every citizen of the, at that time, Lone Star Republic elected Sam Houston as president and endorsed the entrance of Texas into the United States of America. However, the likelihood of Texas joining the Union as a slave state delayed any formal action by the U.S. Congress for more than a decade. And finally, in 1845, President John Tyler orchestrated a compromise in which Texas would join the United States as a slave state. And then on December 29th, Texas entered the United States as the 28th state, broadening the differences in America over the issue of slavery and igniting the Mexican-American War, which lasted from 1846 until 1848. People will tell you all kinds of things about this battle, and you've got historians that are now trying to rewrite what happened. The entire time I was growing up, these were folk heroes. These were men of distinction. These men that fought at the Alamo, Sam Houston, these were courageous Americans that fought for freedom. I have heard all kinds of things. I don't know about you, Adega, but I have heard all kinds of things.
They're trying to paint this as a imperialistic or conquest of territory when there was two groups there, like I mentioned before. There were the Texians, which were the Americans that settled there. They were invited there. They were given land there. And then there were the Tejans, who were the Mexicans, who knew who the despot was, and it wasn't coming from America. It was coming from Mexico.
That's right.
And it was not a white against brown. It was a right against wrong. It was freedom against despotism.
When anybody can just roll up and take everything you have and order you killed and your women tortured or raped or anything like that, it's a fight or die situation. It's that simple. Santa Anna was an evil piece of shit who did horrible, monstrous things. And to be told, well, you're all wrong. History's wrong. This was all a grab for power, for land to take away from. No, as Adega said earlier, you had the Texians, which were Texans that had planted roots there, that bought land there, and the Hispanics that lived there that knew what Santa Anna was doing. This was a fight for survival. They were not going to live as a despot. And Saucy Wench, thank you so very much for that $1.99 super chat. And Adega, you want to do it with me, brother?
3, 2, 1.
Skull!
There it is! It's beautiful!
Saucy Wench. I love it. Saucy Wench says, and God bless Texas.
Absolutely. Set the example. There was a lot of people that needed the example that was going to come in 30 years when we fought the Civil War. But you can see what's happening in our time and also what happens in their time. You can tell what's right and wrong. When a despot would capture his victims, they were killed and executed. It's like any communist or the like. They show no mercy. And it's happening even in America right now, where someone says all lives matter, they get shot and die in front of their children. And in Texas, we want freedom, and he shot and executed him. But when the Texans caught him, all they did was have him sign a piece of paper and send him home. And before that, there was also a battle in, I can't remember the actual location, but they had captured close to 2,000 Mexican soldiers. It was a small group. I think it was only about 500 defenders. They were really good shots. They took their weapons and they said, go home, just don't fight us again. There was no imprisonment forever. There was no harassment. There was no theft except for their military weapons, which, of course, they didn't want them to be pointed back at them again. It's a difference between a free people who understand what it's like to have freedom and what it's like to experience what you're going to lose, as opposed to someone who wants domination over everything. You know, whether it be a general or whether it be a president who turns despot and calls himself the Hitler, or not the Hitler, the Napoleon of the West. Because he really did.
Yeah, he thought he was Napoleon. And Napoleon lost too, twice.
Common words that are used by both them, and I noticed this when they were studying it, or when I was studying about the things that happened then and what is happening now, the two words that contrast, and you could figure out which side it is. One side will always say we, and the other side will always say you. And you could figure out who is saying we and who is saying you. You people need to do this. You need to obey that. You need to do this, as opposed, we are a free people. We want this for everyone. We respect you.
Speaker for the Dead says, Texas was one of the few places in America that still holds freedom as dear as we all should, and even that is fading due to outside influences. I don't talk a lot about where I live. You know, some people have noticed I say on the mountain. I live up on the mountain. I want to tell you guys something. I have never, ever lived in a area that has as much love and as much respect for a veteran as I have over the last 3 years. There are signs, there are specials on the doors, there are shops, there are, you could be walking, I walked through a store with my bomber jacket on, and I had 4 people thank me for my service. Just out of nowhere. I have never lived in an area, and this is all in the last couple of years, that is as welcoming to veterans as I have since I moved where I'm at. It is eye-opening. And they won't put up with that shit either, Speaker. They won't put up with that either. This is, I'm very lucky to be in such a patriotic area, and an area that's as loving as it is to veterans. There are veteran centers here. They do everything they can to honor the veterans that have served this country. And I am honored to be able to live in an area as loving and as respectful to veterans as I do. That is not the way it is everywhere. It's not. And some of these people need to be reminded how our veterans were treated when they came back from Vietnam. They were not treated fairly. They were not treated right. They were called all kinds of sick names. People spat on them as they got off planes at the airport. They treated them like garbage. And these boys went and had to fight a war that a lot of them didn't want to. And a lot of them didn't come back. And one of my best friends, who y'all have seen in chat every once in a while, Bartleby, his dad went through some real serious shit. He lost all of his friends. He lost all of his unit. He ended up in behind enemy lines for months. He absolutely hated snakes because he was crawling around the VC tunnels and there were these asps. And I've never seen anyone hate snakes as much as this guy hates snakes because of the experience, but he made it home. He made it home, and every once in a while he would get extraordinarily drunk and fall down and cry about his friend Frog or his friend Billy, who he held while they died. The things that these people did for this country, the things they sacrificed their own lives for, are something that should be cherished and honored and always remembered. And anyone out there who wants to tear down a statue of any of these wonderful people needs to have their head examined. They need a very, very, very long session with a very skilled therapist, because these are people that have helped shape and give them freedom. Just because they aren't alive still, just because they've been dead for over 100 years, doesn't mean that we don't owe them, each and every one of them, something for being here today, for having our freedom, for having the liberties that we have. Each and every one of them. Those were different times. There were different rules. And to judge these people by the rules some dumbasses want to make, some social rule base that needs to hold for the last 2,000 years, to judge them by that standard only diminishes what they've done for us, only diminishes what they've given us, which is freedom. Freedom of religion, which I hold very dear. Freedom of speech, which I am enjoying right now on this channel, talking to each and every one of you. Freedom to decide my own destiny was given to me by sacrifices made by better men than I. And to turn your back on that, to disrespect that, to tear down a statue of someone that fought for that freedom, that's about the worst thing you could do. I don't know if you could go any lower than that besides being Santa Ana yourself.
It's particularly difficult for some of the older generations, you know, the greatest generation, not so much others. But I remember my dad telling me, you know, he came from a small town in Oklahoma, lied about his age to get into the Navy because everyone saw the writing on the wall. You know, he was a popular guy, had a lot of friends. But when he came home after the end of World War II, there was very, very few of his friends left. His whole town had suffered loss. These people that were his family, they're so much older that I barely know them. They would fight over these little meal rations or ration tickets that they had during the war for coffee. And you have these kids on the streets now, and it's on multiple countries, multiple continents. It's not just here in America, where they're fighting over things that don't really exist, and their bellies are full. You look at these people, very few of them are normal weight. And the ones that have well set hair, they have expensive clothes, and really nice tight fitting masks across their face so they can hide themselves. Where the heroes of the past would go days without food, and they did it willingly so that their children would have food, and so that their children had freedom of choice. I have he's passed away too, an uncle on my mom's side who was in the Korean War. And these are true. They're documented. Sometimes you guys think I have all these far-fetched stories, and Loki can attest some of the things that I've said. I just show them to him. Here's the proof. I've shown him pictures of things and stuff. So take it or leave it. But my uncle was given a religious blessing about never being killed, but would die of natural causes. Well, he went to the Korean War, and he got shot in the knee, and they were ready to send him home. They took him to the field medics up tent, and they're going to do this surgery. They thought they were going to have to remove his leg. And they opened up the skin on his knee and found out, and you tell me how this happens, that the bullet had flattened out on his kneecap. So they stitched him up. He was back out in a week. Later on, it was a couple months later, he was right on the front lines. They were getting shot back and forth, and his buddy got shot about almost 20 full yards away from where he was. This is true. He crawled out to grab his buddy under a hail of fire. This is all to keep the people of Korea free, and brought his buddy back. When he came back, his shirt was shot off completely by bullets, and not one of them had touched him. There's hero blood in all free people. I think one of the biggest points about us bringing up this Battle of the Alamo, because we could pick a lot of them, but this one shows what people who understand what freedom is are willing to sacrifice for. At one point, they knew they were not going to get reinforcements, although they did get small groups here and there. But they fought to the last man for something bigger than themselves. Instead of bending the knee like we've seen even some of our politicians do. Freedom kneels for no one.
That's right. Damn straight. And Trey from Max World Entertainment just tipped a $2 super chat. Thank you, brother. And for not kneeling, Skull!
There it is! Take your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill.
And Trey says, Dabo! Holy Hannah, what a day it has been. And what a mess his puppy Thor is. Yes, he is fine just being Thor. Hope everyone is doing well. Show your love for Loki and Adega and smash that thumbs up and share this stream. Dabo! Thank you, brother. Thank you. And I'm glad that puppy is doing well, brother. I am glad that puppy is doing well.
It's always hard to have a sick one in the family.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Especially when it's an animal that you love and you care about and you treat like one of your own that is a member of the family. Yes, it is.
I can't remember who it was, and it may be someone in our group here, maybe even Ben Trey. But someone said, and I know this is off topic, but someone said humans do not deserve dogs.
Ha!
You think about it. They come into your home, they become your friends, and they're willing to guard the house, to watch over it. They never, ever stop loving you, no matter how bad of a day you have. No matter, and it's, unfortunately, some people will smack the animal. They always love. They have ones that work, you know, they go hunting with you. They pull sleds, and they're always devoted. It really, you find a human that is that good, and you've got someone that is an amazing person. But in a real sense, humans really don't deserve dogs. But I'm grateful we have them.
I am very, very grateful. I got a little baby golden retriever Australian Shepherd when I was 8 years old. And that dog was with me all up until that would have been from 88, 89 until 2004. And he was the very best dog I ever had. And his name was Bear. And he was golden retriever Australian Shepherd. And he had this lion's mane, this regal lion's mane. And he was the best dog. He was the most loving dog. And he did not want anybody around the people that he loved if he did not like you.
Dogs are an excellent judge of character, usually.
Yes. If you came in the house and that dog got up on its hind legs and tried to hug you, which he could, and pee all over you, you were golden. You were golden. You were cool. If that dog growled at you, he didn't want you in that damn house because there was something wrong with you. I loved that dog, and it was one of the hardest days of my life when his hips were gone, and I had to take him to the vet because he was in so much pain. We love our animals. And back to what we were talking about. There are people that are going to tell you that these were evil people. Someone made a comment earlier. I don't know if I could still find it or not, if it's still up there somewhere. And it was Mark. It breaks my... Oh, no. It was Castle. I'm going to show Mark. I'm going to read Mark's here. It breaks my heart to watch videos on YouTube of people acting like idiots to tomb unknown soldiers. The disrespect is awful. Yes, Castle made the comment that I wanted to read out. All people are fallible. Just because there is a statue of a person erected doesn't mean we approve of everything they've ever done. We just celebrate what they did well. I would like to think that everyone out there listening to me right now, listening to this and listening to me in Adega, know something about me. And I will be brutally honest. I was not always the person I am today. I have done things that I am not proud of. I have failed in my eyes. I have failed myself. I have failed people around me. But I strive to be better. I strive to be a better person every single day. I strive to be a better person. And that is what you do. If you are not doing that, if you are not striving to be better and better yourself and better your situation and better the people around you, then take a long look at what you're doing. The men and women that have served this country, that have fought for this country, that have died for this country, that have sacrificed for this country, each and every one of them should have a statue. Each and every one of them. Doesn't matter what else they did in their lives. Doesn't matter that they might have done something you don't approve of or someone else doesn't approve of. If they fought for freedom, something should be there to remember them. Doesn't matter what color their skin was. Doesn't matter what their nationality was. Doesn't matter where they came from. Doesn't matter how they talk or what they look like. If they fought for freedom, something should be there to remember them by.
You know, there was a recent statue, symbol. I can't remember exactly what they did, but she was highly recognized. And I know a lot of people don't know this story, but you probably heard of Tokyo Rose from World War II, where the Japanese would broadcast this woman's voice over the radio. And it was different women. And they were pushing out this propaganda to demoralize the American soldiers that were there. But one of them, the Americans quickly figured out, was speaking in code, saying where the Japanese deployments were, what she saw in the harbor, what ships were being built. And the Japanese never caught on. And she was Japanese, but she knew what was right, and she could have been executed, and yet she did the right thing amidst a whole nation of opposition. She was recently, I think it was about 5 years ago, was finally honored for the bravery that woman had. If we ever talk about the American Revolution, there's quite a few there as well.
And before we close out, since Adega brought that up, I will tell you guys this story, and you can look it up and find out if it's true or not. There was a U-boat production facility and birthing station in Germany. This is where they were building all of their submarines. It was huge, and it was buried in concrete. You could drop the biggest, baddest bomb you had on these sub pens, and it wouldn't make a dent. It would not make a dent. And certain things were happening. They were behind a lot of the time. There were accidents. There was production line problems. All of these things that they chalked up to, well, this is just the price of doing business, was being carried out by the leader, the guy that was in charge of production at this facility. He was sabotaging their own efforts. And the village that was right next to this subpen, the Germans had done some awfully nasty shit to these people. And the villagers towards the end of the war took the subpen. They raided the production facility. They took out the soldiers, and they killed this man. And he was the one that was not only sabotaging their own efforts, but feeding information to the Allies. There is a statue of this man in that town. And that statue would be taken down under the way they look at it now. His sacrifice would have been for nothing because he was working for them. Oh, well, it doesn't matter that that he did this. It doesn't matter that he was giving information and passing it on and could have been killed at any moment by his own men if they found out what he was doing.
And knowing that was a U-boat facility, he could have saved my dad's life because he was in the Navy, and one of those extra boats could have got him.
That's right. And Cred Sox 5 just tipped $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Cred Sox 5. Ready, Adega?
Do it.
Skull!
There it is! Take your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill.
And Cred Sox did not say anything but brother. Thank you. Thank you so very much for that. You guys keep the lights on here. Thank you so very, very much, guys. Thank you. Every single penny counts. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And Speaker for the Dead says, if you love World War II history, watch the documentaries on War Machine, Secret Uncovered. Yes, this is one of the facility ones. The two movies I watched that are absolutely incredible were this one on U-boats, and there's another one on the Messerschmitt 282, I think, or the 281, the first jet, the very first jet fighter that Germany built. Lady Mist just tipped a $2.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Lady Mist, and we're going to do it again, Adega. Skull!
There it is! Take your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill.
And again, Lady Mist did not say anything, but thank you so very much to our Guardian of the Void, Lady Mist. Again, you guys keep the lights on here. Thank you so very much. And Derek McManus says the Messerschmitt 262. Thank you, brother. It was something like that. The very first jet fighter to ever enter the war. And they had this huge facility in the side of a mountain where they were building that. And they had like they had an elevator that would take them up to the mountain, and then they'd have just enough ramp down the mountain and up that they could hit the jets and take off. And that facility never became operational. They had the concrete loaders and all of that, but they were never able to get it off the ground. And hundreds of thousands of slave labor died hollowing out that mountain and building the production facility for those jets. And Dave Bob, brother, thank you so very much, Dave Bob. It is good to see you, brother. Skull!
There it is! Take your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill.
And Dave Bob doesn't say anything either. You guys, I'd love to read y'all's comments. If you want to leave a comment, you're always welcome to leave a comment. Dave Bob says, drive by. Thank you, brother. Thank you so very much, everybody. Take your hats off for Dave Bob. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother.
I'm losing connection, so if I drop out, it's not
okay. We're gonna get out of here anyway, guys. I know Max World Entertainment is going to be going live here in just a couple of minutes. We are on our way out for tonight. Thank you so very much for being here. If you want a kick-ass show, head over to Trey's, guys. He's going to give you a kick-ass show. Absolutely wonderful presentation. He has got so much energy. I absolutely love it. Thank you, Adega, for being here tonight. Thank you, brother.
Always an honor.
And I will catch you guys tomorrow for Mornings of Mischief, and then on to the weekend. And I don't know, there might be something coming up later tonight. I'm not too sure yet how that's going to work, but we will see. So until then, we will catch you guys on the next 7 Kinds of Mischief.
tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.